Is it an epic or epic failure? The Big Review. Movies, games, and TV in focus.
Pulse 95.
All right, we're getting into the long-awaited film that is this time it's called The Suicide Squad, not to mistake it with its predecessor, just titled Suicide Squad. As you guys remember, that last film back in 2016 was abysmal, annoying, forgettable, horrendous, and not even watchable in the first place.
I feel bad for David. Like, I feel like I cannot really go and bash the movie anymore because it's really, I feel like he's watching somebody take his baby and make it better. They've raised the baby. They've nurtured it to something beautiful. Basically, like in a dark, twisted way, of course. Exactly. And then I'm like, but I can't really talk badly about it because I feel bad for him. So you can go off if you like, but I'm gonna refrain from commenting about the previous Suicide Squad movie. Okay, so The Suicide Squad is somewhat of a sequel, but also a soft reboot. As you guys are familiar, the story is all about this, high security prison that has some of the worst supervillains in the world, and they have a chance to get out of the prison if they promise to join into a super secret, super shady Task Force X, or aka the Suicide Squad, where a lot of them wind up getting killed. And that's sort of the beauty of this team, because you get an ensemble of some, outcasts, some people that are irredeemable and unlikable. But this movie does something that I did not expect. And that is, I grew to really enjoy some of these supervillains. I grew attached. And that is unthinkable. That is unheard of. Goodness. The way that James Gunn made us super attached to some of these characters. Now, we're not going to ruin who lives and who dies, of course, because as usual, this is a spoiler-free review. We'll just say this. Nobody's safe. Nobody's safe. And that's a good thing. No, it wasn't a good thing. It's a good and bad thing. It's a good and bad thing, because at the beginning we're like, whatever. They're not going to be important characters, the ones who die. But then as you go on and you see that, you realize and you remember James Gunn's statement a long time ago when he said that nobody is safe. And this is when you start fearing for all your favorites. And you're like, goodness, my favorites might actually die at any moment. And the funny thing is, you're not going to have favorites right off the bat. Sometimes, yes, like there is one character that is Ratcatcher. I loved her since the moment I saw her. She was my breakthrough actress, the breakthrough character in the entire movie. But at the same time, as the movie continues, you're like, wait a second, I love the entire team, even the annoying ones. And there are smaller characters, you're like, you know what? Those are also my favorites, like Milton, for example. Goodness, I loved Milton so much. He was like one of those random characters, but he was just amazing. He was just perfect. Me and my friend were like, wait, is he actually going with them? And he's like holding a little goodie bag. I'm like, no way. He was one of the highlights. And that is one of the beautiful things about this movie. Like I said, there are so many characters, and you're gonna love every single one of them that James Gunn sheds a spotlight on. You are gonna love every one of them. And I love the fact that he simultaneously did this thing where he showed us that they are crazy, irredeemable people, but also they have a heart without making it too cliche. Yeah, there is some moments where they do a little bit of a flashback, exposition, and it's usually on the way to a mission, so it doesn't drag on for too long. You just get enough to familiarize with these characters before they get into the nitty-gritty action. And the action sequences in this movie, beautiful. When we talk R-rated, I'm watching this movie, I'm like, finally, an R-rated movie that understands the tone of the material that it's adapting and does it to perfection. So thank you, James Gunn, for this, honestly. Exactly, because we always talk about, you and I, that sometimes R-rated movies, when it comes to bloodshed, they just do it for the heck of it. They're like, we just spill blood everywhere. We're gonna make it gory just because we can. And most times you're like, why? This is unnecessary. You cannot fight for, an R-rated movie and then just show me blood just because you can. Over here, it just made sense. And we seem like we're crazy, but when you guys watch that movie, if you haven't watched it, you will probably agree with the same thing, because it was just a right amount of blood or bloodshed, if I can say that. And also, can we talk about the camera work, or should we leave it for the next segment?
There's so much to cover. I would love everybody to join in and text us 4215. It's the Leather Do. Have you watched The Suicide Squad? What are your personal impressions? Let us know. Let's take a short break and keep talking about this wonderful movie.
Pulse 95.
Michaela and I continue our extensive review of The Suicide Squad. That is the reboot sequel created by James Gunn for Warner Brothers / DC, and it is, I believe, one of the best movies to come out of the DCEU in the past 10 years, basically since the DCEU was created, because we enjoyed every single bit of it, whether it's the characters, the action scenes, and now we move on to some of the technical effects, especially the camera work, was just subtle and very, very fun. It's very engaging as well. The way sometimes it's very unpredictable. There is one scene that I loved very much, which is when Idris Elba's character Dubois he had the camera right in front of him because he was talking, and then he kind of gave an instruction to all the characters behind him. I'm not going to tell you anything beyond that. I'm trying to keep it as spoiler free as possible, whether you watch the trailer or not. And he gives instructions to somebody behind him. So what happens is that the camera does not really move, but then it loses focus from his face, and it focuses on the background and what that character was doing, and Dubois' face / Bloodsport is still there in the corner, and it barely moves. And it was just those subtle things, whether that fighting scene that was shown completely through the helmet, that was very, very innovative, and I loved it because it wasn't too gimmicky. There were times when just normal shooting, the movement is beautiful as well, whether it's Harley Quinn's fighting scene, that was amazing. It was one of my favorite scenes, and those small things here and there that makes the movie really, really enjoyable.
Also, another great thing about this movie is the way it paces some of the chronological sequences, because there'll be times where we jump to the present, we jump to the past. And I remember in the first part of the film, maybe it was a little jarring for me, but no, it doesn't detract from the story losing any traction, or you kind of forgetting what's going on, or it doesn't make sense. No, the pacing is actually really well done here. And there are moments where you just as it reaches a climax, it's like 8 minutes before, I'm like, ooh, okay, what's going on here?
I love that.
It's stuff like that, just to give you a little added layer to some of what, because this is going to be an ensemble of supervillains, so you're going to kind of figure out what is one character and another character doing at the same time, and it all culminates to something that is super grand at the same time. And another thing is the comedy. The comedy here just works. I don't know how to explain it, but there is not a moment where the jokes or the sense of humor just flies over my head. It all just works, and I'm really happy that it elevates the entire experience.
Oh yeah, definitely. Again, although I don't have the heart to compare it to the other movie, but it is leagues and leagues and leagues ahead of it, whether it is the various levels, the emotional commitment you end up having towards these characters. Goodness, when I tell you that some characters you're like, it sucks that they died, but then some you're like, you need a moment to register that they died as well.
You're conflicted.
You're conflicted. Other times you're like, why didn't this person die? Why did it have to be this person? So James Gunn, you really delivered on your promise, and that high rating from Tomato Meter and all these other reviewers and critics makes a lot of sense. Part of me was like, really? That high? But then when I watched it, I was like, yeah, I get it. Which brings me to my final
all right, final verdict.
I find it, part of me wants to give it a 9 out of 10, but part of me cannot. I cannot really tell why. So I'm gonna just say and give it an 8.5, just to make sure that I'm in between.
Okay.
There is something that maybe, I'm not sure what the missing element is that would have made it a 9. I would definitely rewatch it. I have no problems. Usually that is my criteria. Would I rewatch it? Yes, I would, because that's how fun it was. And the characters were a lot of fun as well. And this the entire thing. If I say fun one more time, it just shows you how much I enjoyed this movie. Whether you watch it at home through Netflix or through the cinema, it's still an enjoyable experience. What about you, Mikhail?
For me, I'd say it is an R-rated film that's super entertaining, gets the comedy right, gets the characters right, the tone of it all it's done to perfection. And the only issue I have is just that maybe some of the characters have a little bit of plot armor, and that's where it drops 1 point. But I'm definitely going to give The Suicide Squad a 9 out of 10.
Well, there you go. This is our review of The Suicide Squad by James Gunn. Basically, in conclusion, we really enjoyed it and hope you guys do as well. And you have watched it, text us 4215. It's a lot or do. We move on to another event. That is Ariana Grande's involvement in the Rift concert in Fortnite. Coming up next, right here on the Afternoon Karak.
Pulse 95.
In retrospective, we've come a long way from that Tupac hologram concert, or even the Hatsune Miku hologram concert.
Come on.
I'm just saying,
Don't come for Hatsune Miku.
No, I love it. And I remember there was a time when the media sort of bashed and thinking that was such a weird way to, enjoy a concert. But lo and behold, we've basically evolved into in-game virtual concerts, and Fortnite is sort of in the forefront and doing something this epic, just like their publisher's name, Epic Games. Last time we've had...
I'll give you a clap.
Thank you.
Really wanna.
Travis Scott was the last virtual concert on...
No, he wasn't. There were several mini ones in between, but when we're talking about something of this scale, yes, Travis Scott was the first one in this sort of Fortnite tour where he got like a whole interactive display, and people were kind of experiencing something beyond just having something very simple, because I believe Marshmello was also part of it as well, but Marshmello was also at a smaller degree as well as other artists.
They just had sort of like entertainment hubs. Players would join and watch a screen, but this is no small feat. With Ariana Grande's latest concert, Fortnite Rift Tour, it is it's a 10-minute spectacle experience as players. They can't really hurt each other, but they actually get to join in some really cool segments, just almost teleporting into different worlds of just complete, beautiful visuals and aesthetics. It's all bubbly and cloudy. I guess that's the sort of style that Ariana Grande likes. And there's even little mini games you have with every segment. You get to hear some of her songs, and as you teleport, you hear another song, and depending on the song, it sort of sets the tone, the atmosphere of that level. There's some mini games where you're flying on a plane with other random players as you fight a little boss, and next thing you know, you're in this little dark room as you revive players, and there Ariana comes up, and it's all stars and glamour, and she sings her, I guess, one of her more emotional songs. So I have to say, it's gotten a lot better, surprisingly enough, and it's got a lot more engaging compared to the Travis Scott concert. And if anybody still curious and want to check it out, be sure to load up your Fortnite on your consoles, because today is the last day to actually attend the virtual concert in-game.
And it just shows you how far we've come when it comes to video games, and especially making video games interactive and having that sort of life service beyond just actually continuing the story or introducing new arcs, but rather involving other sorts of mediums into the video game industry. And it, just like we said, makes it a lot more interactive, a lot more fun, and also basically drags other people who might not be players. I mean, I'm pretty sure Ariana Grande fans, who are like one of the biggest fandoms out there, probably made Fortnite accounts so they can enjoy it as well, or we're joining different various streams of players so they can also experience it in their own way. If you do not want to be like not physically, but in game in the Fortnite Rift concert, you can also check it out on YouTube. There are plenty of streamers who put it up, including well-known channels such as GameSpot. I watched it, was a lot of fun, and part of me was like, am I gonna download Fortnite? And that is exactly what Epic Games is trying to do. They're trying to plant the seed of questioning, like, maybe I do like Fortnite. It looks very, very fun, and they might be succeeding. I mean, if they did not succeed with me, they probably succeeded with many other people.
I can imagine you with a controller and your headset, and you're like, okay, where we're dropping, boys.
I mean, it might happen. Who knows? But we're going to be taking a short break. Coming up next, we're going to be talking about South Park, the Addams Family, and Blizzard, and so much more right here on the Afternoon Karak.
This is Pulse 95.
Nothing has confused me more than the announcement that South Park's creators are getting $900 million in funding for 14 movies, more seasons, and a game.
Yeah, this has come as shocking news, to be honest.
Very weird.
Almost ironic, because I remember there was a time when the creators of South Park in an interview said, I'll be honest, we've been doing this for over a decade, and I'm surprised no one has shut us down yet. And to see MTV sign a deal with them as big as this, to have majority of the IP coming exclusively to Paramount Plus, which is a new streaming platform service, and to even have a video game in the process. Now, I think the game does make sense. People would like to see more of that, but to have 14...
Would they? Let's be honest. Okay. Do you think that South Park still has the cultural impact it used to have in the mid-2000s?
To an extent.
Does it really? Do you see people still talking about it beyond the people in the fandom itself? It doesn't have that cultural value it used to have. I'm not saying, like, my biased opinions aside, because I never liked South Park and always thought that it was a waste of time, and I just never enjoyed it. I felt like the jokes were too much a lot of the times. Like, there's dark humor and then there is South Park humor that kind of sometimes goes overboard. So I never enjoyed it. But my biased opinions aside, I can easily say, anybody can confidently say that in comparison to 2007, 2008, maybe all the way to 2010, 11, 12, I feel like South Park, in terms of its cultural impact, it has dropped down in value. It doesn't have that ability anymore, which is why, again, it just made no sense to me that they're getting this much money for this many seasons that probably will go all the way till 2027 and beyond.
Now, I would have minded a few new seasons and a video game, but to have 14 movies, a little bit excessive. The question is that how much can the IP cover if it's going to have to pump out that many movies, and is the quality going to be good? Because sometimes quantity detracts the quality of the whole show. And in terms of its cultural impact, I would say, for me at least, I would tune into a new season of South Park just to see how they poke fun on just everyday issues that are happening currently in our world, in terms of politics, in terms of, like, corruption and stuff like that. There is some
socioeconomic issues,
stuff like that. It's enjoyable, but I wouldn't say I'd watch it all the time. And with so many seasons now being promised to Paramount Plus, I will somewhat agree with you that I feel it's going down the route that Simpsons is going, where now it's 30 seasons in, and it feels like it's a shell of itself, of its glory self. Yeah. And I think maybe I worry that's where South Park will be heading.
Oh yeah, I understand what you're saying. Especially with The Simpsons, even though I feel like The Simpsons, the reason why they continue to be in the conversation simply because of their ability to quote unquote sometimes predict things that happen in the future. So that just brings up its ratings and makes sure that people are still talking about it. But South Park, I haven't even seen a meme about South Park in years. Like, I rarely see anything about it. I feel that what Paramount is doing, because they want to find something, an IP that they have that would boost their streaming service, they decided to go with South Park because,
but I feel like they overdid it.
Oh yeah, definitely overdid it. They just took all their money and just threw it there. They're trying to compete with the giants. I mean, HBO Max, even though HBO Max is one of the newest streaming services, it is taking the world by a stride, because we've heard rumor it's trying to expand already into the Middle East and Asia much faster than Disney Plus is doing. In addition to that, they've been trying to stream big blockbuster movies on the same day with their theatrical release, which, much to the dismay of the actors, actresses, and, the people who worked on the movie. So they're trying to compete. Even Peacock is probably way ahead of it. So they're like, what do we do about this?
We need our golden goose.
We need our golden goose, and perhaps they don't realize that their golden goose is does not produce any golden eggs anymore, and they're basically putting in a lot of money at something that is kind of dead, or at least in the process of dying out.
It's certainly going to be a weird fate to see how South Park is going to progress throughout the future. Big deal. I'm sure the creators are really happy about this. Fans, I'm sure they're also happy about this. But
How many fans are there?
But there is this feeling of questionability. It's like, how long can we keep doing this for?
To say the least. And that is just some of our opinions about South Park. Text us 4215 Salat or do. Whether you agree or you disagree, would love to hear from you. We move on to a rumor that I really, really like, and I think it might be true and legit because it is coming from reputable. Is it reputable? Reputable. Sorry, guys. It's a Sunday.
Sloppy Sundays.
Sloppy Sundays. The vocabulary is still, the dictionary is still waking up, and goodness. I give up on big words. My point is, it's a good rumor. It's about the Addams family and the fact that perhaps Gomez Addams have been cast already. Coming up next, right here on the Afternoon Karak.
Speculation, gossip, or hoax. Rumor has it.
When it comes to Gomez Addams and Morticia Addams, they're incredibly specific characters.
Iconic, you could say.
Iconic, that if somebody has to play them, they really need to look like them. And there's only a handful of people who can look like them. And I feel that if this rumor is true, they've picked one of the few perfect people to play Gomez Addams, the patriarch of the Addams family. And according to this rumor, it might be Luis Guzman.
Now, you guys remember the Wednesday series got picked up by Netflix, and none other than Tim Burton himself will be directing this show, which means that there's a lot of promise. And now we ask ourselves, is Luis Guzman fit for the role of the father? And a part of me says yes, and a part of me says no with a question mark. Because I do really, anything that I've seen Luis in, whether it's a comedy or sometimes you see him in like random action films, I wouldn't say that I don't like him. I do enjoy his presence. But it's important to know, does he have a presence, and can he really hold up to play the very important role of from the father from the Addams Family?
I hope you guys are tuning in right now to our live stream so you can see me.
I'm saying he looks the part, but can he play the part?
What do you mean, can he play the part? Of course he can play the part.
I think with enough makeup and...
he doesn't need... He looks like him. That's one thing. That's one of the biggest things. But then we also don't want to fall into the rabbit hole of just because that person looks like a character doesn't mean that, they're going to be a perfect actor. But here, they've hit the jackpot because Luis Guzman can act. That is a fact. He definitely can act.
I'm cheering for that idea. He has great experience, I'm sure. And I really do wish him the best, because this is still a rumor. It's not fully confirmed. But if it is true, I'm not saying that I'm like being very wishy-washy about this, but I'm saying that I would be excited to see him play that role.
You have to be excited because, again...
But I have to compare him to the one from the 90s film.
Oh my God.
So I'm a little critical there. That's just all I'm going to say.
I don't know what to say, because I really think that he's one of the few people who would have been perfect for this. So if this rumor is real, then it makes a lot of sense, and I am going to enjoy it very, very much, and I think it's going to be perfect, especially if they're going for a person who looks older. If we're going for somebody younger, Oscar Isaac, I feel, would have been perfect for this role, especially since Oscar Isaac already voices, Gomez Addams in the animated role. So it would have been nice, but obviously Oscar might be a little bit too occupied with his Marvel TV show Moon Knight. Coming up next, we're going to be talking about Blizzard. We've got some updates about the controversy that has happened. Some executives have also been, I wouldn't say fired, but they have stepped down from their role, as well as specific sponsors have also dropped their sponsorship. Coming up next, right here on the Afternoon Karak.
Pulse 95.
We are keeping you updated with the latest in the Activision/Blizzard controversy, where basically it was revealed that there has been a lot of, let's say, some not so good things happening in the studio, including a sort of frat culture that eventually even led to bullying and the death of one of the employees. In the latest in this saga, we hear about Coca-Cola and State Farm basically withdrawing their sponsorships from the Overwatch League, which isn't something that surprising, especially since they're not the first companies to do that since this controversy happened.
Yes, the communications firm T-Mobile removed itself from the Overwatch League. As you guys know, it is a big esports competition that Blizzard really does try to take advantage in terms of being part of the professional sport and promoting the game itself. But it seems that there's the spokespersons for Coca-Cola as well as State Farm have not really confirmed anything, but they have been aware of the allegations about the lawsuit, and they're considering to step down as the official sponsors for the Overwatch League. And I think we're seeing the first signs of almost like a demise of some kind for Blizzard, as even the chief compliance officer, Frances Townsend, got into a lot of backlash because some of her internal emails were shown, as she says in a private email about the lawsuits and the allegations. Quote, in quotes, she would say meritless and irresponsible, and that she was criticizing the concept of whistleblowing, that it shouldn't be practiced, and that it's bad for a company, despite the fact that the whole lawsuit is about discrimination of women, harassment, and a lot more worse stories and cases that's happening in the company. And because of this, she basically stepped down from her position.
I mean, it really, really sucks because she's a woman herself, and it just shows you that, sometimes, a lot of people say that women should have each other's backs no matter what. That is true, but then there are some problematic women, and that is when you should always speak up and tell people that this person, despite them being a woman or being from a marginalized group, they could also be problematic, because it is sort of a culture, it's an environment, and they're basically making it worse. They're enhancing this toxic nature of this environment. So when this thing happens, it is everybody's job to say, despite them being from a marginalized group, they should be held accountable, which is good. I'm glad that her emails were leaked, and I'm glad that she had to be forced to step down, even though she probably will still maintain some sort of, credentials or credibility, because, people who are higher up, they usually do not suffer too much of the consequences, unfortunately.
Yeah, but people will never forget, and it seems like this whole lawsuit debacle still continues to develop, and it's continuing to also hurt Blizzard themselves. And I think the more it hurts them and it hurts their image and hurts their money, sooner or later, there's obviously going to be some reformations of some kind. And when that happens, don't worry, we'll give you guys some updates on that as well.
As usual. And as usual, we've got Aisha and Mikhail suggest we did not have a celebration today, but there is somewhat of a very nice celebration that is happening today anyway. And I'm going to be talking about it during our suggestion. It is near and dear to my heart. And instead of boring you guys by talking about it for 10 hours, I've made it into a suggestion coming up next, right here on the Afternoon Karak.
It's almost 5 p.m.
That was Afternoon Karak. For dessert,
Aisha and Mikhail suggest
If only we had all the time in the world, but don't worry, we're going to be back here again at same time from 4 to 5. But let's wrap it up with a final suggestion. This one comes from Aisha. There's a celebration that's happening today, but almost like you could say there's a collaborative suggestion with this as well.
Oh yeah, because usually, if you guys haven't been keeping up with the afternoon Karak in the past 2 years, we usually have some sort of celebration. We celebrate at the beginning of the hour if it coincides with a special date. And today just happens to be International Cat Day. And I was like, you know what? I've got too many things to talk about. Let's move it till the end. And the reason why I move it to the suggestion segment is because I feel that a lot of us should probably contribute more into the cat welfare industry, even animal welfare in general. Usually when it's Tiger Day, I say go to the WHO and not WHO, sorry, I'm trying to remember the name of it. Was it the animal one?
Any wildlife preservation.
Yes, animal wildlife preservation sort of website or organization and donate money or try to help the conservation effort. But when it comes to cats and dogs, especially in the UAE, you can actually physically volunteer if you'd like in those animal shelters, or if you want to go the extra mile, you can be a foster parent as well, which is super cool and super nice as well. And to add to it, if you do not want to be involved physically with the animals in terms of going to a shelter such as the Sharjah Cats and Dogs Shelter, for example, you can also donate money to a lot of those non-profit organizations here in the UAE and here in Sharjah as well that are doing a lot of things just because they really love these animals and they want to help these animals. So they're putting in their own money and effort. So go ahead, as part of International Cat Day, do a small thing for these cats, and it's going to be a good thing. It's a nice way of celebrating this day. And as usual, check out our podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. Just search up Afternoon Karak, whether it's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anghami, and SoundCloud. And also search us up on YouTube, Pulse 95 Radio, to check out the death glares I gave Mikhail when he was talking about Luis Guzman. And with that, we end and wrap up our hour. Make way, clear the desk for the dynamic duo that are Big Hass and Anna Schofield of Yellow Home, only here on Pulse 95.
If you liked this episode of Afternoon Karak, drop a like and subscribe.
Pulse 95.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram for all our daily updates and top stories.